When my older sister flew back to the States, my husband slid a divorce agreement across our marble kitchen island and said our marriage had run its course. The paper was thick, expensive stock that made a small, decisive thunk when he set it down. My heart did something like that too. I signed where he'd highlighted, because that's what you do when the person you married never really chose you. Then I tucked the dull ache into the quietest corner of myself, put a palm over the small secret in my belly, and did the single pettiest thing I could imagine. I married his sworn rival. Years passed. On a clear fall afternoon, my kid who has Daniel Cross's cheekbones in miniature, pointed at the man I used to call husband and chirped, "Hi, Dad." To the other man? The rival. The one Daniel hates so much he won't say his name without cracking a knuckle. Daniel's eyes went bloodshot in real time, his jaw working while he swallowed the truth. Love is not a product you can force market. It didn't start out like this. It started with 2 pink lines on a drugstore stick and a contract fluttering down in front of me like a white flag. I didn't have time to be happy about the test before Daniel's voice went flat and corporate. "Claire, let's make this clean. Sign this and I'll wire you an additional $3 million. He looked impeccable as always, navy suit that framed his shoulders, that calm, predatory stillness he used in boardrooms. Handsome, yes. I'd loved him so long the word had calcified. My throat worked and worked, but my head wouldn't nod. He tapped the paper, impatience bleeding through. "We married under an agreement, remember? 3 years minimum. There's a month left. If you don't sign now, we wait 4 weeks, and it dissolves on its own, and you'll get only what the original prenup specified. No bonus." I drew in a breath that tasted like old promises. "Daniel, if I tell you I'm pregnant?" I hated myself for saying it even as I said it. I knew the Cross family's obsession with heirs. I knew how he'd been raised, that ice-tempered sense of duty. I thought maybe the word would crack the frost. He didn't blink. "I had a vasectomy. The child can't be mine." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Daniel Cross was the only man I'd ever been with. If it wasn't his, whose was it? The air went thin and brittle, and I understood something basic and irreversible when a man doesn't believe you. There's no language that makes you credible. He left. The door clicked. The house hummed with the silence of a museum after hours. Our marriage had always been a kind of set design. 3 years earlier, the person Daniel was supposed to marry wasn't me at all. It was my sister, Lily. Then Lily caught a flight to London 2 weeks before the ceremony to chase a version of love with a man whose eyes were shock blue and empty. My parents pleaded. The Crosses were furious about optics, and I, who'd crushed on Daniel since high school, who once timed my route between classes to pass him under the old oak in the courtyard, said yes. Daniel agreed, because the Crosses needed a bride across from their son for the photos. On our wedding night, the suite looked like an advertisement, cloches and orchids, and a bed that could hold a basketball team. Daniel handed me a contract that said the marriage would stand for 3 years, at which point it would dissolve regardless of my vote. I signed. I had 7 years of fantasy and a fatal optimism if I showed up, if I did everything right. His heart would thaw and turn toward me. I packed his lunches in glass containers because he hated plastic. I learned to brew coffee the exact way he liked, dark, hot, a pinch of salt to blunt the acidity. He had a temperamental stomach, so I experimented with ginger broths and bland, careful food. He got migraines. I learned pressure points and bought blackout curtains for the room he preferred when his skull felt like a tuning fork. In retrospect, I must have looked like a well-paid live-in home health aide with good cheekbones. Sweetness without dignity curdles into resentment if you leave it out too long. I stared at the divorce packet, pen hovering, when my phone vibrated. My mother's number lit the screen. "Claire, honey, Lily's plane lands this afternoon. She'll be here tonight. Daniel's coming over. We'll have a proper family dinner, aren't you thrilled? Don't bring up the past, okay? She's been through a lot. My mother kept talking how that British ex had brought women into their house, how Lily miscarried because stress ratchets through the body like an alarm. How Lily was ready to come home now, to do right by herself. The longer she spoke, the clearer the architecture became. Daniel's sudden urgency, the timing of everything. Lily was back. The story wanted to snap into place. My head tilted, lightheaded. A weird, almost comic thought slid into the room. This was a novel. One of those mass-market romances with a glowering CEO on the cover. And Lily was the heroine, Daniel the moody male lead, and I quiet, helpful. Claire was the disposable supporting character whose job was to step aside and bless their inevitable happy ending. In a future scene, because Lily's body had suffered, perhaps she'd be told she couldn't carry to term. And then I, beautiful self-sacrificing ghost, would hand them my newborn like a warm loaf of bread and smile through tears about how love means giving. The thought was so precise, it terrified me. Maybe I was losing it. The thing is, once you see the scaffolding of a story, you can climb it. I put down the pen. If Lily wanted Daniel, and Daniel wanted Lily, fine. They could have each other after I finished making them, both exquisitely uncomfortable. That evening, rain hammered the city. My parents' suburban place looked unchanged down to the creek on the third stair. Lily swept in, and the living room recalibrated around her without asking. She was thinner, sharper at the jaw, a halo of damp hair around her, still the sun in our family system. Daniel followed, one sleeve damp to the elbow. Lily's sweater wasn't even speckled with rain. I could picture it, Daniel tilting the umbrella over her, letting his shoulder catch the overflow. When I walked with him, he moved forward without checking, and I trailed like an afterthought. I tucked that away and smiled as if the night were ordinary. I slid myself onto the couch beside him and tucked my hand through his arm. "Your sleeve's soaked," I said, honey sweet. "You'll catch cold, and Cross Holdings can't afford a down quarter just because its CEO doesn't own a raincoat. I'll get you a dry shirt upstairs." A muscle in his temple jumped. He didn't rip his arm away. Image is a tyrant even for the people who think they run it. Upstairs, he yanked free and hissed, "Don't touch me." "You're my husband," I said. "For a month. I get conjugal arm privileges." "Did you sign?" "No." I looked him in the eye. "I'm pregnant." His nostrils flared. "I told you." "Not mine." "Maybe you got a vasectomy from someone who learned medicine from YouTube," I said coolly. "You've been the only man in my bed. Don't slander me just because you've decided that what's true should rearrange itself around your convenience." For a second, I thought he'd explode. Then he bit down his rage so hard his jaw clicked. "What happened to you?" "I stopped performing wife as service," I said. "Turns out I'm better at wife as wrecking ball." Dinner was theater. I put my head on Daniel's shoulder when I couldn't quite reach a dish. I asked him to pour my water. I made sure my voice carried. Lily's fork slowed. My mother scolded me gently in the kitchen for making Lily feel bad, and I almost laughed out loud. In our family, we'd always moved furniture to accommodate Lily's feelings. Nobody ever checked whether I had knees. I tilted my head. "Mom, I'm pregnant." A glass shattered. Lily stood with empty hands, a stunned look on her face she couldn't quite school. Daniel strode out of the bathroom at the sound, grabbed my wrist, and dragged me toward the door as if we could both outrun gravity. Back home, he glared until his eyes watered. "I am pregnant," I said. "It is relevant." In the mirror later, brushing my teeth, I licked my lips and realized I was smiling. There's a special kind of joy reserved for women who finally give up impressing people who were never on their side. In the morning, I slept in for the first time in years. Ate, sunlight slicing the curtains. Daniel sat on the couch with a grim face and the famished look of a man whose breakfast had always arrived unbidden. "Hungry?" I asked. His stomach made a sound like a small whale. I ordered delivery. The doorbell rang and he stalked out without a word. I ate a buttered bagel with both hands. Around noon, his assistant, sweet, overworked Megan, called. "Claire, the cafeteria food is upsetting his stomach. He hasn't eaten. He's, really not thriving." "He'll survive," I said. That's the perk of adulthood. That evening, Lily texted me a photo Daniel at a table with a large pot of shining red chili, steam blurring his face. The message unsent itself a second later. Then came "sorry, wrong person." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Daniel's gut hated heat. He'd picked a toast at breakfast, apparently skipped lunch, and now he was letting Lily take him somewhere that specialized in capsaicin and pride. I slept like a cat in a patch of Sunday. In the morning, my phone had a snarl of missed calls. Megan again, he's at street. Luke's? Please. I made rice porridge. I ladled myself a bowl. I put the rest into a jar, took an Uber to the hospital, and walked into Daniel's room. He was pale, jaw clenched, hair a little chaotic for once. His eyes flicked to the door as if he expected someone else. When he saw me, he turned his face away. Megan beamed. "We knew you'd come." I set the jar on the tray. "It's what I had for breakfast." "I was going to throw it out anyway." Daniel's face went from white to bruise-colored. "Get out." I left with a lightness at my collarbone. In the hallway, leaning against the wall like he owned the building, stood Sebastian Hale. If Daniel was flint in winter, Sebastian was silk over a knife. He had a habit of smiling like he'd just thought of something wicked. Daniel hated him with the kind of clean, uncomplicated hatred you usually only see in animals or children. "Eavesdropping?" I said. "This is public space. I'm simply present." He eyed me, took in the jar, the situation, the faint flush in my face. "Damn, Claire, you made Cross look like he swallowed a cactus." I'd pay to watch that again. "Don't call me Claire like that." "How should I call you?" His eyes were sharp and God help me fond. "Mrs. Cross?" "For now? Don't call me anything. Leave." "Spiky," he said happily. That's the girl I remember. I stomped on his foot. He hissed and laughed at the same time, and I loved that I'd made a grown man do both. I decided I'd divorce and take the $3 million because I am not allergic to compensation. I'd also decided I'd raise the baby alone. There are women who love with softness. There are women who love like a barricade. I tilted toward the latter. I booked an appointment to end the pregnancy. The OB looked at my labs and shook her head. "You can't," she said simply. "Your iron's low, clotting's off. The procedure's unsafe. Risk is high organ damage, hemorrhage. If you insisted, we'd prepare for worst-case scenarios, but I'd advise against it." The room felt smaller. The night before, I dreamed again that I was paging through a paperback, The CEO's Reluctant Bride, Something Purple and Inevitable. In those dreams, I saw myself handing away my child like some pious offering. In this version, I asked different questions. I left the office and walked straight into Sebastian in the hall outside OB. He looked from my face to the door sign and back. "You're pregnant? Why didn't you tell me so I could go with you?" he demanded, and then softened the words with a rueful grin. "I mean, obviously, it's your body, your call, but if there's going to be a baby I can professionally annoy, I should get on the calendar." I crushed his toes again. He grimaced and pretended that was what he wanted. 2 days later, leaving my building, I missed a step because I was smiling about Sebastian flinching. A blur of motion, a too fast car, the world tilting the split second where your body decides you're breakable after all. Arms clamped around me, and then I was on the concrete, breathless, shielded. "Doctor!" someone shouted. I heard Sebastian's voice like it came through water. That was the last thing I knew until the world rebooted in an ER curtain room. When I opened my eyes, he was there, big hands, useless on his knees. "Oh, good," he said, relief swinging through his voice like a pendulum. "You're not dead." I should have made a PowerPoint about crosswalks and you. "Don't be mean," I muttered. He immediately turned into a different version of himself, solicitous, ridiculous, asking if I needed water, if I needed a hand to hold, if I needed him to glare at the driver until he cried. A shadow sliced the doorway. "Daniel." He took in Sebastian's posture, my hospital wristband, the way Sebastian crowded my space like a claim, and his face went murder quiet. "Sebastian," he said. "That's my wife." "Really?" "No ring," Sebastian said, glancing deliberately at Daniel's bare left hand where he refused jewelry because it impeded typing speed. "Also, she came to OB alone." "I assumed you'd died." "Out," Daniel said. "Can you say more words than that?" Sebastian asked politely. "It's just variety keeps the brain young." Daniel stepped in. Sebastian stepped closer. I would say they were two stags measuring antlers if I didn't know they were just men who'd chosen to hate each other because it made them feel alive. "Both of you out," I croaked. "Or I'll ask the nurse to sedate me, and then you'll have to console yourselves by hitting each other with your briefcases." Sebastian's grin flashed. He eventually left after one last look to make sure I wasn't going to die. Daniel waited until the door swished shut. "Anything you have," he said tightly. "Hale wants." "Don't be flattered. It's not about you. It's about me." "That's the bleakest thing I've ever heard," I said. "And also wrong." He saved me with his actual body. Daniel's mouth compressed. Something in his face wobbled, as if he'd discovered gravity late. I had the stupid, bright thought that I could hurt him now the way he once hurt me. I looked at the ceiling tiles, each one a small white decision. "I think I might be in love with him," I said. "I'll sign the papers tonight." He got very, very still. After discharge, I rifled through the kitchen drawers for the divorce papers and found nothing. I called Daniel. "Where is it?" "I don't know." "You do. You hid it." Silence. You learn the acoustics of someone's breathing after you've slept beside it long enough. He had. He hung up. It didn't matter. 4 weeks were sliding by like a train you're not on. My mother called me home. My parents and Lily arranged themselves on the couch like a tribunal. My mother squeezed my hands and put on a face I think she intended as maternal but looked more like pity. "We know you weren't happy, honey." Daniel wasn't gentle. "Maybe you should just end it." I looked at Lily. She looked back with careful sorrow and a hope she didn't try hard to hide. There it was, the plan, made neat. "If I do," I said softly, "what happens to the baby?" Lily's lashes picked up light. "That baby isn't his." She was brisk, efficient, going in for the stitch that would hold the narrative tight. "He didn't call you a liar." "He's being generous, Claire." "You should be too." 500,000, I said. They blinked. "What?" "Wire me $500,000 and I'll file today." I smiled at Lily, crisp and bright. "You're the heiress of this particular branch of the family. Dad's already picked out which houses will be yours. It's a rounding error." Lily's jaw tightened and then settled. She nodded. We waited. Daniel arrived 15 minutes after Lily called. He loved efficiency. He came quick for things he wanted to control. "Where are the papers?" I asked. He watched me the way you watch a controlled burn. "You're eager to be free," he said. So eager you can't wait a few more weeks. Is it because Hale expects you at dinner? Yes. And because I want my kid to grow up with someone who runs toward danger for him, not away. Daniel's face did a series of small, private contortions. He called Megan. She arrived with a folder. I signed. I slid the pen across the table. Remember, I said lightly, I'm the one walking away. Also remember, you owe me the transfer. I stepped into the afternoon feeling flayed and somehow buoyant. I'd lost a husband I'd never really had, and parents who never quite saw me except in the way you see a useful shelf. I stood on the sidewalk, wind in my hair, the city doing its indifferent, beautiful city thing. I didn't cry until I was in the back of the Uber. Crying felt like something my body did so I wouldn't have to. A black Maybach pulled in front of me as I got out near my building. Sebastian unfolded himself from the back like he belonged to a catalog called Gentlemen Behaving Badly. So, he said. No, hello, smiling as if it hurt. Did you do it? I glared. How do you know everything? Lily called me, he said brightly. She wanted to make sure I knew the schedule, presumably so I could draft a press release. He cocked his head. No one's in the way anymore. We could get married at breakfast. I'll make pancakes. I won't poison you. You'd be a terrible husband, I said. You're chaos. Daniel's son calling me dad is a fantasy I intend to explore, he said, delighted. I'll buy the kid a drum set immediately. Don't ever come near my home with a drum set, I said, and somehow I was laughing even as my chest still pulsed with grief. I moved. West to east, city to small city, a place with a good library and bad winters where nobody knew my maiden name. I bought a storefront with big windows and painted it until the air smelled like clean newness, then opened a flower shop that looked like an apology to every bouquet I'd ever thrown out. The day I got the keys, I walked down the hallway to my new apartment and turned the knob. Across the hall, a door opened. Sebastian leaned into the frame in a slate sweater, startled grin widening. What are the odds? You stalking me, or am I stalking you? Either way, we're terrible at it. I shut the door in his face, then leaned against it and laughed until I had to sit on the floor. He started coming by the shop. He bought roses because he thought it was funny and let me scold him for having the taste of a high school prom. He brought coffee and learned quickly how I took it. He stood on a ladder without arguing when I needed the high peonies watered. He told me lies about being well-behaved and then stayed to take out the trash because my belly had started to show, traitorously tender and round. We were outside taking a delivery when a car misjudged a turn and came for me like a bad idea. He shoved me hard enough that I skidded, took the hit square in his thigh, rolled, cursed, and then tried to get up. I'm fine, he gritted, face white. I have a black belt and a high pain threshold, and also I am a very convincing liar. His femur wasn't broken, just a surgical situation with screws and a stern orthopedic surgeon. He turned into the neediest patient in America. Claire, he moaned, my arm hurts. No, the other one. Please feed me exactly 3 spoons of soup and then kiss my forehead for morale. I refused until he reminded me calmly that he'd stepped in front of a moving thing for me. I rolled my eyes and fluffed his pillows and set an alarm for his meds and wanted to strangle him, even as tenderness began to colonize my edges. Daniel appeared once, as if drawn by some homing beacon of male competition. He looked bad gray around the mouth, eyes that had learned regret. He grabbed my wrist and pulled. Come outside. Now. From the bed, Sebastian raised his head. Unhand my girlfriend, he said in his most schoolyard voice. Or I'll hobble after you and we'll both look ridiculous. Lie down, I told him. If you put weight on that leg, you're getting instant oatmeal for dinner for a week. He wilted. Daniel led me into the hall. I made a mistake, he said, voice ragged. I dreamt of you every night after you left. I always knew you were kind. I didn't understand you were brave. Come back. We'll try for real. The things we want arrive late sometimes, rain-slicked and lovely, dangerous if you reach while the ground is still wet. I looked at him and felt almost nothing except a pang of nostalgia for a girl who used to think love was earned through labor. I don't love you anymore, I said. And I'm with someone who would gladly step in front of a car again if it meant I'd be okay. You don't get to rewrite by decree. He tried to warn me about Sebastian, that he was only competing, that the attention would disappear the second Daniel stopped caring. I called you from an ER and you were in a meeting, I said. He called an ambulance with your name in his mouth like a prayer. Don't lecture me about weight. He stared at the floor, then lifted his head. He looked like a boy who'd gotten lost in a store and was trying not to cry. Pity is not a healthy foundation. I went back to the man who was catastrophically bad at being a patient and exceptionally good at being there. Sebastian healed slowly because he liked when I fussed. His performance was ruined the day I yelped and put a hand on my belly and he leapt from the couch like Lazarus. You're fine, I said flatly. He grinned and kissed me so exuberantly my knees remembered something I'd been denying. He came to every prenatal appointment. He learned how to swaddle by practicing on a loaf of bread and made the nurse laugh until she cried. He cried quietly in the delivery room without making it about him and fainted only once after, when he held the baby and realized nothing he'd built mattered if he couldn't keep us both alive. We named the baby after my grandmother, and Sebastian whispered the name like he'd been waiting for it his whole life. At a year, her first word was mama, second was dada, and he walked around for a week like he'd won an award. When she was 2, he asked me to marry him with a ring he'd designed himself, something sleek and strong. When she was 3, we got married in a small ceremony with only people who loved us properly. He slid the band onto my finger. I turned my head and for a second I swore I saw Daniel in the crowd, a shadow made of should have. I looked back at my husband and chose not to go looking. After the ceremony, in the courtyard, I saw Daniel kneeling to offer my daughter a wrapped caramel. She stared at it solemnly. Mom says don't take candy from strangers. He looked like he might say, I'm not a stranger, but the words died. I touched our daughter's hair. Go find Daddy, I told her gently, and Sebastian appeared as if summoned, scooping her up and spinning her until she shrieked. 0, 6. Claire, Daniel said, voice rough. He hadn't married Lily, she'd returned to London, on again with the blue-eyed ex. Cross Holdings had taken hits he couldn't stabilize. I'd heard he drank more than was good for a body. You can't starve a houseplant for years and then panic water it back to life in an afternoon. The child he started, and I put up a hand. Doesn't matter, I said. What matters is we're done. Please don't come near us. I won't be polite if you do. I turned and walked toward the man who'd waited outside every doctor's door. Behind me, a sound like something tearing. I didn't look back. That's how you move forward, eyes front, spine straight, letting what you've outgrown drift away without ceremony. Some nights, when the house is quiet and our daughter's breathing ticks through the baby monitor like a metronome, Sebastian kisses my shoulder and says, We've done this before. Oh, God, I groan. Not the past life pickup line again. Listen. His voice goes gentle in a way that makes me want to fold myself into it. We grew up together. Different names, same person. Same laugh. You went south for school. I started a company so I could afford you without asking permission. I bought a ring. A truck didn't see you at the crosswalk. I sat beside a mountain and died a little and woke up with a different last name and a stupid feud with a man whose only hobby is control. Then I found you again because there isn't a universe where I don't. I tell him he's ridiculous. I tell him he's manipulative for telling stories this good at bedtime. He kisses me until there's no room for argument. He points to the life we built, flowers spilling out of buckets in the shop, my hands smelling like eucalyptus, a wall in our hallway covered with finger paint and Polaroids, a kid who thinks love looks like two people trading off at 3 a.m. without resentment because both of us want to be the one who's there. I used to think I was a side character. I believed the world arranged itself around a woman brighter than me, and I was the girl in the background holding the extra coat. The moment I stopped trying to be the moral of someone else's story, the plot changed. If there's anything like fate, maybe it's not the kind that pushes you into tragic poses. Maybe it's the kind that keeps tossing you a rope until you grab it. On a Tuesday afternoon, I'm sweeping stems from the floor when Daniel's name shows on my phone, an old ghost still haunting a new number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listen. It's just breathing for a while, then, I'm sorry. He says my name. He hangs up. I don't call back. I go downstairs and water the lilies. Sebastian strolls in with our daughter tucked under his arm like a rugby ball. She's laughing so hard, she hiccups. "We need tulips," he announces. She has decreed it. Also, she says the cardboard castle needs a drawbridge. And I agree, because I am wise. I hand him scissors. He kisses my cheek in front of customers like he always does, shameless and sure. He's ridiculous and loud and vain and better than I deserve, and exactly what I chose anyway. Our daughter points at him with 2 sticky fingers. "Daddy," she says with the conviction of the very small. Outside, the light shifts. Inside, the shop is warm. There's a bell on the door that chimes whenever someone comes in. It's not a symphony, it's not a fortune. It's better. It's ours. The end.